Good day, everyone. So, let me start this brainstorming by asking you about your ideas and opinion about the Treaty of Paris. Everyone is free to express, give, and share their knowledge about this topic. Based on the information I've gathered, Treaty of Paris 1898, also known as Peace Treaty between Spain and America, ended the 6 months hostility in Spanish-American War, year 1898. The treaty came into effect on April 11, 1899, when the document of ratification were exchanged. So, anyone who have another idea about the Treaty of Paris?
My idea about the Treaty of Paris 1763. The Treaty of Paris of 1763 ended the France and the Indian War. 7 years war between Britain and France, as well as their respective allies. In the terms of the treaty, France gave up all its territories in mainland North America, effectively ending any foreign military threat to the British colonized there.
For me, the Treaty of Paris 1898 was a treaty signed by Spain and the United States on December 10, 1898 that ended the Spanish-American War. Under it, Spain relinquished and claim of sovereignty over and title of Cuba and also ceded Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines to the United States. So I have here the content of the Treaty of Paris, which is Treaty of Paris. The British Crown formally recognized American independence and ceded most of its territory east of the Mississippi River to the United States, doubling the size of the new nation and paving the way for westward expansion.
So, for me, the Treaty of Paris is an agreement signed between the Spanish and American in regarding the ownership of the island of the Philippines. In addition, the Philippines was sold to the United States at 20 million US dollar and effectively undermined the sovereignty of the Filipino after their revolutionary victory. So, anyone?
Okay, okay. Another idea based on my research, the Treaty of Paris ended the Revolutionary War and recognized American independence. Furthermore, the Treaty of Paris is important because it realizes independence between the 13 colonies. So guys, what do you think? Why is it important?
Okay, for me, the 1783 Treaty of Paris established the full independence of the United States of America. The Crown of Great Britain recognized the United States as a separate, independent, equal, and sovereign state. It established peaceful coexistence between the governments and between the citizens of the United States and the subjects of Great Britain.
For me, the importance of Treaty of Paris is they stopped and ended the war between the Spanish and America. Also, the Cuba gained the freedom from the Spain, and the Treaty of Paris recognized American independence and established borders for the new nation. Another importance of Treaty of Paris is ranking the end of the Spanish imperialism. The treaty established the United States position as a world power. Another,
Of course, it's important because it ended the Spanish-American War. This treaty also ended the Spanish-Filipino War in the Philippines. However, it brings another war between the US US troops, and Filipino people.
Let's proceed to 10 facts about the Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris ended the American Revolutionary War. The American Revolutionary War was a battle between the 13 original colonies and Great Britain for control over America. The war officially broke out in 1775 and the original colonies declared their independence in 1776. Number 2. There are two very important points in the Treaty of Paris. The first Treaty of Paris that I'd like to mention, the first and arguably the most important, is that the 13 colonies were no longer under Britain's control and were to be considered free and independent. The second important point is the new borders that were agreed upon allowed for western expansion. This point may have not been very important at the time, but in later years, when Americans began to explore west, it would make things much easier. Number 3.
Number three, King George III didn't sign the Treaty of Paris himself. Like all good kings, King George III had several people working for him. And by several, I mean several hundred, if not thousands. He was the king of the British Empire after all, which was very large at the time. Rather than signing the Treaty of Paris himself, King George III sent a representative to do it for him. While this may sound strange, it was quite normal at the time. Kings just weren't seen out and about, even if it was to sign an important treaty that would bring a bloody war to an end. King George III sent two men to represent him, David Hartley and Richard Oswald. Hartley was a statesman and an inventor, and Oswald was a merchant and a slave trader. Both are best known as the commoners that signed that treaty.
Okay, the number 4. Three important Americans signed the Treaty of Paris. America sends three men to sign the Treaty of Paris: Benjamin Franklin, John Jay, and John Adams. Adams was the diplomat to the France and war sent to the Paris to the start negotiationism. 1982. All three of the men are considered to be founding fathers of the United States. Franklin is known for his writing, his scientific diseases, and his inventions. Franklin invented the Highland Road, bifocals, and the Franklin stores. Okay, for the number 5, the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783 and but British surrendered in 1781. I'll already mention that the British surrendered in Forktown in the 1781, but that did mean that the war was officially over, or that the 13 colonies were officially independent. Like most things, the negotiations took a very long time.
Okay. The sixth of facts regarding to the Treaty of Paris is Spain was also involved in the American Revolutionary War and the Treaty of Paris. So, therefore, makatuwiran na mayroong ilang mga kasunduan na kailangang lagdaan upang wakasan ang tunggalian. Sa pagkakaalam natin na ang Treaty of Paris ay nilagdaan sa Paris noong September 3, 1783. That's all.
So, the seventh fact about Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris included several different terms. I've already touched on some of the most important terms of the Treaty of Paris, but the treaty itself was made up of the case point. The first two will find more in depth above. A new law that required debtors to pay their debts. Another law required that all property he returned to their right ownership. Details include fishing rights and restoration for property and prisoner of war. The eighth fact about the Treaty of Paris. This an unfinished painting depicting the signing of the Treaty of Paris. In celebration of the end of the Revolutionary War and the Treaty of Paris, artist Benjamin West began painting depicting the signing of the treaty. West were American and wanted to share the good names with the world. This painting was never finished. Why? It is because he could not get British communister and member of parliament David Harley to sit for the paintings. So another.
Number 9 is that there is only one article from the Treaty of Paris that still stands today. That is the Article 1. Basically, the only article from the Treaty of Paris that's still recognized today is that the original 13 colonies are independent from Great Britain and the Crown. Number 10 is that there are several treaties of Paris. That is because there were several countries involved in the American Revolutionary War. It makes sense that there were several treaties that needed to end the conflict between the two nations. Treaties referred to as the Peace of Paris. Next,
Okay, in short, the Treaty of Paris, the negotiation for the Treaty of Paris actually began in 1782, although it was not signed until 1783. The Continental Congress had originally appointed 5 men to the commit. However, Thomas Jefferson did not arrive in Paris to sign the treaty, and Henry Lawrence was held captive by the English government. For this reason, only Franklin Adams and Jay were present for the signing. That's
thank you everyone for sharing your ideas. So, since everyone had already shared their ideas, knowledge about the topic, let's end our brainstorming here. Again, thank you and wassalam.